All right. So, hey YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about barbells for hypertrophy and what is the role of the barbell in your muscle growth, fitness, hypertrophy routine. So, barbells are very split. They're a very emotion inducing piece of equipment, far more so than, hammer strength, lying chest press or whatever. The barbell has a certain romanticized notion about it, which tends to lead to very strong reactions. So there are some coaches online who love the barbell, whose entire programs are based around the barbell. The barbell, fives, 5x5, 5 gallons of milk a day. The barbell, nothing but fives. I won't name them because people tend to get quite excited when I do. So if that's you, relax. Okay, this video is not going to be about that. Oh, there are other people who hate the barbell. There's a guy on Instagram, a coach. He's a lifter. He's got a 90,000 fan base, 90,000 follower fan base, and he's famously declared the barbell is useless for hypertrophy. So I want to just talk about my stance, and I want to give you 3 ways that you can include the barbell in your training if you feel you're not that suited to it, and if you feel it's potentially injurious or not that great for hypertrophy. Okay, so firstly, a bit of background on me. I'm a powerlifter through and through, and most of my strength and mass was accumulated via the barbell. That was just what I did. Okay. Now, I found the barbell to be a very good source of hypertrophy. I don't know why barbells are that useful for hypertrophy, but I can sort of speculate. So hear me out. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me or not. This is kind of my list of why I feel the barbell is actually quite good for hypertrophy. And I'm not saying machines aren't, but I'm just like trying to speculate a little bit. I think firstly, machines have a limit, an inherent limit, especially the pin loaded ones. You can get to the bottom of those pretty quickly. Also, in my time, having trained for 20 plus years now, I've moved across to different gyms quite a lot. And so every time you move gyms, there are different equipment there. So in terms of trying to get to the top of the standard, well, think about it with machine. You're either going to stack the machine or you're going to fail to stack it because the gym will close, you'll move house, you'll move job, and you have to move gym. So or let's say you get to the gym on a Monday and the machine's broken. What are you going to do then? So I think barbells are quite a good standard because they're mostly always there. They're always available, and they're quite standardized. So your machine is broken, you've had to move gyms. Well, the barbell is still the barbell. The very famously, 200 pounds is still 200 pounds. You guys have heard that quote. I also think there's a bit of an emotional attachment to barbell lifts. So how much do you bench, right? No one ever says to you, how much do you flat hammer press? You're like, oh, I do 4 plates on that one. No, not that one. The other version, the other version they released in 1990. Oh, that one? I don't know. I've not used that one before. No one ever has those conversations. It's like, how much do you bench? How much do you squat? How much do you deadlift? About the most we get is, well, how much do you squat? Is it parallel? Is it below parallel? Whatever, right? So with that introduction out of the way, let me just talk about 3 ways you can actually include the barbell, because I happen to think it's quite useful. But I also recognize that they have some limitations and not everyone is built for the barbell lifts. So the first way to include the barbell is to allow the barbell to form a smaller percentage of your weekly allotted exercises. So what I mean by that is this. Let's give you an example. Let's say you're doing 12 sets of quads or like knee flexion exercises. So, and let's say you're maybe doing, you've read the science, it's between 10 to 20 sets, all that stuff, right? You've prayed to the Church of Schoenfeld and you're doing 6 sets twice a week, okay? So your 6 sets twice a week look like this. On Monday, you do 3 sets of squats and 3 sets of leg extensions. On Thursday, you do 3 sets of squats and 3 sets of leg press. So that is half of your work is a squatting exercise with the barbell. Now, you could change that to 3 sets of squats on Monday and 3 sets of leg extensions. But on Thursday, you do 3 sets of leg press with 3 split sets of a single leg exercise, like maybe split squats, weighted lunges, unilateral leg press, something like that. So a quarter of your weekly quad work is now barbell squat, as opposed to half of your previous weekly quad work was barbell squatting. So that's a way in which there's far less acute stress of the barbell on the tendons, on the loading patterns, all that kind of stuff. And it's equal-ish stress on the muscle. So you're still doing 12 sets of quads / knee extensions, knee flexion, but the actual squat, the barbell exercise, is a lower percentage of your weekly total. And that is a really, really good way. If you're not very suited to the squat, if you're like me, you've got long limbs, long leverages, it's a nice way to include squatting in your routine, but also to include exercises which are going to build up the areas of the squat while doing exercises which are a little bit more friendly for you as an individual. Like I know for me, deep leg presses, I would have to do something pretty funky to get injured on a deep leg press. On a pendulum squat, I would have to try pretty hard to get injured on a pendulum squat. But I also know, on a barbell back squat, because of the way I'm built, it's a lot of acute stress on the knees, on the back. So it's one of those things where I'm probably better off just reducing the overall squatting load in my week while keeping the rest of the load on the quads the same. So that's the first way. Reduce the overall squatting load in the week, but keep it in. It doesn't have to be a case of, okay, I'm a squatter, I'm a barbell back squatter, or I'm not. Okay, like some of these guys online love to say, it's not about hard line, black or white things. Like most things in life, there are shades of gray. So by all means, keep the squat in. It's a good exercise. Just make it form a smaller percentage of your week. That's the first way. Okay. And if we take that as an example for the bench press as well, let's say you're not very suited to the bench press. Let's say you've had some issues with that in the past. Maybe it flares up your shoulder, whatever it is. Okay. And let's say previously you were doing something like the bench press, incline dumbbell bench, weighted dip, and cable crossover. That's a pretty nice selection of exercises across the week for a block of training. And you were doing that for 15 sets. So you might change that to bench press, incline dumbbell bench, dip, machine chest press, as well as cable crossover. So now the bench press forms a smaller part of your weekly load than it previously did if you're doing it for the same number of sets. Easy. So you don't have to get rid of the barbell exercise altogether just because you've had some problems with it in the past. You can still have it in, just have it in as a much, much smaller percentage of your weekly load. So that's the first way. Second way is this. Second way is rotate the exercises you use in 3-week waves. Now, every 3 weeks, you rotate your core lifts. So for the first 3 weeks, you might do squats. Great. And squats might be 1/4 of your weekly load. For the next 3 weeks, you might not even do a squat. Just get rid of it altogether because you're going to come back to it the 3 weeks afterwards because you're working in 3-week waves. So that way you're doing even less actual squatting, but you're still getting plenty of quad work in, and you're never too far away from the squat, so you're not unlearning the exercise. Okay, so you might have 3 weeks where you don't even squat, and that's a nice way to keep the squat in on a sort of macro basis, but week in, week out, you may not always squat. It's a nice way to do things. So that is working 3-week waves, and in some waves, either have less or no squatting altogether. Just keep it in your rotation across the months. All right. Now, the third way and the last way is to do it for speed. Good way to do it. And I detailed in my conjugate method series, you can do it for speed. It doesn't have to necessarily be the 12 sets of 2 or 3 approach. It could simply be 5x5. Now, 5x5 with a weight which is roughly 60 to 70% with 1-minute rest periods is actually quite challenging. It's quite challenging, Now, it's typically far less taxing than 80 to 85% weights for hard sets of 5 to 8 because, again, it's less acute stress on the tendons and the loading patterns. The rest periods really are the stressor. So the lighter weight means you're still working hard, but it's less tendon stress if you're not built for it. So there we go. 3 ways to include the barbell lift. My personal preferences, I like the barbell lifts. But I think above liking the barbell lifts, I hate hard deadline sort of statements like barbell lifts are rubbish or barbell lifts are amazing. I prefer to find something that works for the individual. And I think you'll find most people who coach a lot of people, they tend to shy away from hardline sort of rules because once you've worked with enough people, you realize that everyone really is an individual and you have to find what works for them. No, so I'll end this discussion by saying, if you absolutely hate the barbell, don't let me stop you, okay? Don't do it. Unless you're a powerlifter, then you might want to, and you probably picked the wrong sport. If you love the barbell, go nuts. Just make sure you're not getting hurt because of your love for the barbell lifts. and use some of my tips in this video if you are. Right, guys, hopefully that was useful. Let me know what you think. Just some practical tips there for exercises which I feel are very useful for the repertoire. All the best. Take care.